Hi everybody, still Will hanging out with Big Beard. This is our roundtable discussion of how our brandy project worked out, um, to which I've basically decided to start calling trash can brandy. And I guess Big Beard, you want to tell us the different talking points here that we have that we're going to go over?
I made a list so we wouldn't forget. The ingredients in the preparation, the fermentation, distilling it, the results of distilling it, how we had to fix it, and what we would do better next time.
All right. So first thing first, ingredients and preparation. Um, Big Beard, you want to talk about some of that?
Uh, if you've seen any of our reels, you know that we had a neighbor who had a pear tree and didn't care about it. So all of the pears we got were free, uh, picked off of a tree. Then we decided to try to break them down faster than you normally would, and we thought throwing everything out it would work. We quartered and cored them, obviously, but then we froze them for like 24 hours. Then we thawed it out, heated them up in some hot water, try to soften them up. Um, I guess a big part of the learning process here was that you can't speed through those kinds of things. They need time to break down. Pears do.
Yeah, there's a couple of different ways you can do it. If you're doing a wine, like a berry-based wine, it's pretty easy to consider freezing them and then letting them thaw out for a day and throwing pectic enzyme on them. On a large-scale brandy, I know we talked about maybe this down at the bottom, but we should have let them get riper. They were just too hard. They weren't ripe yet. They didn't really provide any juices, so the only thing they provided were some sugars and some flavor. They didn't really provide what they could have. So letting them get riper to the point that they're basically, most people would consider them bad, is basically when you want to squeeze them, cut them up, juice them out for a brandy or a wine. Um,
Other than that, we had the normal sugar, water. Um, we have a 15-gallon still. We'll get to that in a minute, but we ended up making 14 gallons of usable wash. Pretty much standard ratio. What would that be per gallon?
like 2 pounds, 1.5 to 2 pounds of sugar per gallon of water. I think most traditional pure sugar washes are like 2 pounds to every gallon. Um, so everything, I mean, as far as what we did to ferment the pears, it it worked. We just knew pretty early on, and then definitely throughout the process, that we didn't get enough out of the pears. We were too quick about it. If I think we ended up with 35 pounds of pears. If I was going to do it again, I would try to probably get 50 or 60 pounds of pears. I would let them get riper. We would try to actually juice them out, and just use the
Yeah.
juice.
These were already a hard
You know.
pear, like a cooking pear. They weren't like the
Yeah,
kind
so
you just bite into
we
and eat.
definitely fought the pears, but they were free. We'd never made a brandy, so we didn't really care what we were using, what we had access to. Other than that, the fermentation itself.
Well, we added some extra things based on Still Will here's wine research. When it came to preparing everything to make the ferment, we actually used a wine yeast. We thought that would help since it was a fruit. We used some yeast nutrient too. I think part of that might have been because we were concerned about the pears.
And I wouldn't
some pectic enzymes.
I wouldn't change any of that. I wouldn't. I think if you're doing a brandy, that a yeast that is known for winemaking makes more sense than a generic whiskey or bread yeast. I don't know that for proof, but it makes sense that if you're going to use it for making wine, that it would be ideal to ferment off to end up distilling for a brandy. I would think
Makes sense to me.
I would think it's going to help the flavor out. Um, we used a little bit of baking soda before we pitched yeast. Our pH was a little high. It wasn't crazy. I think it was between 6 and 7. And we brought it down to somewhere between 4 to 4.5.
Yeah.
Which is what we were aiming for. So the fermentation itself, though, I mean,
Yeah, when it fermented, it flew. It wasn't like most things. There wasn't much action in the first 24 hours, but after that, that wine yeast was just popping off. I mean, it had like a foam on top from how much it was gassing out. We were excited to see that. If you saw the shuttle launch reel we did, that was a lot of fun to see that working off as fast as it was, because standard, corn liquor ferment is pretty calm. I mean, it gets ahead, but it doesn't bubble enough to make like foam bubbles. So that was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, the yeast worked exceptionally well. It primarily finished fermenting in like 4.5 days. I think,
it did not take a week.
No, it was super fast.
And there was no complaints about that when we talked about distilling it. The proof and how it ran, phenomenal.
Yeah.
We just still didn't get enough of the pear, but we'll come back to that.
Yeah. So that puts us at point 3, which was distilling it. We have a 15-gallon, pretty traditional keg setup, 15-gallon keg primary pot. We have a 7.5-gallon or 7-gallon third barrel. It is larger than the common size, which I think is 5. And then we have our own traditional built worm coil. So
yep. So still thumper, worm condenser.
Yeah, I don't know. There's nothing fancy about this setup. It's the easiest setup that you can build, and put a thumper in line to increase your proof, or to use that as a second stage to add some flavor, which you can. But that brings us down to,
which we did.
Yeah.
In the thumper, we didn't do any heads and tails or anything from any other runs or whatever, because it's a pear brandy. We didn't want to ruin that flavor. Funny enough. But we put pear juice along with some of the mash or wash.
Yeah, we put a half gallon
kind of try to
100% pear juice
it up,
and then a little bit of the wash, just to try to really force it through some additional pear.
It was fast. We got lucky.
Yeah.
You may have seen the video of us charging the still. We did that the evening before we ran. So we actually had a spot where it got direct sunlight all day. It was hot that day. So we came home to run. We already had a good head start. So
yeah,
it ran quick.
It was a hot week. I want to say it was mid to upper 90s the entire week. So it came up to temperature crazy fast. I think we were running in like an hour, which was usually it takes us 2 hours to be up and running no matter what we're doing.
Yep.
Even just a basic corn sugar wash. But I mean, the thermometer was saying that it was basically 100 degrees inside the tank before it even started. So the time to get it running, it being that hot out, was fast. I think we ran the entire thing in like 3 hours. As far as we didn't care about getting deep into our tails. We were never going to reuse this for anything else.
Nope.
It was just entirely an experiment run.
Yep.
So we only ran it through to the heart. So we only ran it to like 100 proof, which I think was like 14 jars or something.
Yeah, 14 jars in. We didn't keep the first 4 or 5 either, because it was 2 heads.
Yeah, so we ended up...
The distilling process, though, was just quick, and everything ran perfectly. So there's really nothing to talk about there. There's no improvement needed there.
No, it's a tried and true still. You can't really mess it up. Blow your lines out before you start. Rinse things out before you charge things. Just pre-test everything. Pre-test your burner. Go ahead and make sure your condenser's holding water and pumping through the way it should. That's the only recommendation on that. Otherwise, using a keg still setup is really probably the best way to start. We ended up with about 1.5 gallons of hearts. And when I say hearts, I mean when we proofed down and took out our heart jars. It came in basically right at 118 to 120 proof in the heart section. And we ended up with about 1.5 gallons. So we were pretty happy with that.
Yeah.
That's about where everything ended as far as how smooth everything ran.
Yep, you could really smell the smell coming off the still at first.
Yeah, it definitely smelled fruity and like pear. And we tasted jar 3, which was like 136 proof, which was just super hot. You can't really enjoy
flavor,
drinking something like that. So what we ended up with when we proofed it down to about 120 was we noticed right away that there wasn't a whole lot of pear or juice flavor in it.
Nope. Came out great though.
Yeah, it came out great.
Condensation on here, but
we proofed down a couple quarts to around
clear.
75.
Yep.
Just to see what it did. If bringing down the proof brought out more of the pear flavor. It did not.
Now sometimes that does happen though because the fire hides it.
Yeah.
But
when we proofed it down, it just became more and more like a neutral alcohol. So I think
just a hint, barely there, pear. I mean, you may not even taste it if you didn't know you were looking for it.
Yeah. It's honestly extremely smooth though for a neutral at 75 proof. It didn't really get warm at all going down until a little bit in your chest.
Barely right here. Just enough to let you know you're drinking alcohol.
Yeah. Other than that, as far as a neutral goes, I mean, pretty dangerously smooth at 75. Just really nothing there to enjoy tasting.
Yep.
So what we determined happened there, which we'll bring back up in a minute, is all of our additional pear flavor from both the wash and what we added to the thumper to try to increase it basically got pushed out within the first handful of head jars. We know that because we tasted one of those jars like we talked about, and it was full of flavor, which made me really excited for everything we were doing.
Yep.
But it used that up for those first handful of jars, and so we didn't have it when we got to the heart section.
I mean, you can't really smell much of anything. Honestly, it smells a little sweet, so it almost just smells like regular corn sugar liquor.
Yeah, I mean, well, there's not a corn in it, but I mean,
no, but it has that sweetness to it, though.
Yeah,
from the pears.
Yeah, it's definitely just a neutral alcohol. So that was one of the things that we learned was that we need to consider something like an infuser or a bypass setup.
Yep, and we'll get to that though in just a minute because we're going to go through why these other two jars are here as we continue to talk about how we try to fix this, salvage our again what we ended up calling trash can brandy. Again, because we fermented it in a trash can, but also it didn't come out tasting like honey peach brandy.
No. So we reproofed the entire batch down with 100% pear juice to about 75 or 80. Now, this has had about a week to age after being mixed up. My first impression when we did it was that it definitely gave it flavor in the front, but then it just fell flat in the back end. It just went back to being a neutral.
Yeah, I can confirm that. You kind of taste it in the front, but then again, it's still kind of more of a neutral spirit. And we just couldn't add more pear juice without getting below a certain proof.
Yeah, there had to be a point where we stopped there. So we took a break and actually talked to a few people we know online. We're glad to credit any of you if you want to be credited. You reach out and let us know. Some names I know people don't mind being credited. So Big E's and Philbilly Moonshine, Modern Moonshiner Group on Facebook, Keg Still Group on Facebook, Moonshine Brandy Recipe Group on Facebook. Everybody there was awesome about providing feedback and different ideas. And somebody recommended that we don't waste it just yet and macerate it, right?
Yeah.
Which was a smart idea. I don't know why we didn't think about it, because we have made basic corn sugar alcohol that we turned into apple pie, and for the benefit of the flavor and the decoration, we usually bottle it with the apples that we use to age it, and that we use it to cook up with, brown sugar, cinnamon, all that. So I don't know why we didn't really think about it, but we also didn't think about this as a wine project, and that's more of a wine technique. So that's where we're at now. We took the rest and decided it was worth trying to make something out of it. We bought
a bunch of sugar.
Well, yeah, like 2 bags of pears. We ended up with 5 half-gallon jars like this with like a dozen or more quartered pears in each one. And on top of that, we added a full cup of sugar, basically to back sweeten it like a wine.
Yeah, per half-gallon container.
Per half-gallon container. So that made sense. And we haven't tried this yet. This is at
no.
5 or 6 days old.
Yeah, and they say in the process, obviously, the longer you can let it sit, you know, the better.
So we're going to live reaction try this right now.
That's why it's not cold.
Depending on how it tastes, maybe I'll throw a little bit of cinnamon or brown sugar in it. Maybe we'll do nothing and just let it sit for a few months and bring it back out near Christmas time. And you know, if it tastes like it's on its way to something good, we'll just let it sit. What does it smell like?
And it smells like pears. You know, give it first go, sir.
Oh, it's definitely got a pear smell to it.
Yeah?
That's really good. That's got a honey pear to it for sure.
Oh, wow.
And dangerous. No burn at all.
No. Dang. I completely forgot about the honey. This somehow feels like it brought the honey back. I mean, it must be the sugar bringing that honey flavor back, but whew, shit. We'll go again. Oh man, that is sweet. That really worked. I mean, I knew it would, but man, it'd be a lot better chilled like the other ones were. But my God,
this is that's an entirely different drink now.
It really is.
Wow.
That
is not the same drink at all. That's crazy.
Nope, still 75 proof. Didn't have to proof it down anymore.
No, I mean I don't know if any of the sugar or pears would have reduced the ABV some, but that even if it did, you're talking
about. Well, it's still got to be at like 70 still, which is standard
high
brandy.
60, 70 proof, and it's super sweet. I think the best thing we can do is just let this continue to sit. It does. It tastes fantastic. It's super sweet. So
it really is.
Really dangerous.
Yeah.
I want to find something to mix that in, like Sprite or something.
So,
you know. So basically, what's nice, I guess, is finding out that made a giant improvement.
Yeah. We can make use of this now.
We can definitely make use of this now. Break it down into quart jars. Get rid of that. Hand that out as Christmas presents or something. Maybe throw a little piece of cinnamon might actually be fantastic.
It almost felt like it had a little bit of cinnamon in it, so I stuck a little bit of cinnamon would really help.
I think a stick would help. I think the pears really brought out like a honey.
Yeah, well, remember it had honey in it.
It did, but not much. So it's crazy how much that I think the pear flavor.
If you recall at the very beginning, we were calling it our honey pear brandy.
Yeah.
We just spent more time talking about the pear because of all the problems they were.
Yeah.
Or at least pulling the flavor out of it.
So basically, I mean, if I'm just being honest, I think, you know, you learn. I think the only good way to learn is to make mistakes. And to be honest with everybody, this did not succeed. It did not. It came out as far as the hearts that we kept that we hoped would be brandy, it was a neutral by the time that we took our hearts out and proved it down. So we learned a lesson there. We learned a bunch of things there. One, we should have used more fruit and we should have used better pears.
And we should have been patient though too. We tried to speed up the breakdown process.
Yeah.
We thought we could throw everything at it
which I think most of them would have worked had they been riper to start with. They were just too green. They were just not juicy at all, and we didn't really squeeze anything out of these things. So
we tried.
The pectic and stuff like that may have helped pull flavor and some sugars out, but we didn't give it enough time to pull out as much as it could. So it mostly ended up being sugar anyways.
Yep.
There's a lot of things that we would definitely do different. We would break down the pears better, and by that I mean pretty much what we did, but let them be riper to start with. I think we needed to invest in a fruit press. I'm excited to jump into trying to make a rum. Big Beard and my wife are on the side of we need to take advantage of what we learned and failed with this and turn around and make another brandy. Which I mean, I'm on board.
We got a bunch of free blackberries because we just found out we had a ton of them growing on our property out in the overgrown area. So we've got, what, 30 pounds or more? Already been frozen for weeks now, maybe a month.
It's like amazing how much.
I know. You have to pass that back to me real quick.
It's almost more like an apple pie.
So Not sure what the next adventure is going to be yet. We're trying to
No.
convince Still Will here to just jump right into the brandy after everything we learned.
Open game. So we'll see what we find. Maybe we'll find some yesterday's news and just get our hands on a whole bunch of something from a local farm like strawberries or something. But if we're making around a 15-gallon wash to make sure that we have enough for a thumper and the primary pot and everything, I would double the fruit we use. We use 35 pounds. I'd like to use a minimum of 60 pounds of fruit just to try to get what we can out of the fruit before we have to add sugar. Because one thing we've learned, one thing that they talk about online, and I agree with this, I definitely agree, the all grain guys will definitely clap their hands at this, but the more sugar it takes to get your starting gravity to 10 to 12% for your wash, the more fire it's going to be. Now, I do think that how you run it plays a hand in that. We've run plenty of corn sugar that's absolutely fantastic to sip on at 120 proof. It makes sense to me. So I think a lot of things come into play with that. But the more natural sugars that you can get out of something before having to use sugar to gasoline up the
definitely more than 30 pounds.
Yeah,
for a 15-gallon still. We fill that sucker up too. They probably had 14 gallons in there. We were a little worried that there might not have enough headspace, but again, the thing just flew. So
yeah,
all aces from the still this time. It's just no problem at all there. That does bring up another thing we could do differently that would require modifying the still, but it's something we learned about way after the fact. And you may have seen this before, like a still that has an arm that has, say, 3 jar thumpers on it, and then they have another cross pipe that just goes past all that, bypasses it. That is a thing we hadn't really considered doing before because we didn't really see a need because we were previously just making basically corn liquor.
Mm-hmm. So we were getting more corn flavor for sure, but we were also getting a higher proof by running a thumper. But using it the same way in this pear brandy, it pushed out all the flavor it had.
Yeah, I never thought about
by the 4th or 5th jar.
It's not a concern with the corn. We never had to think about cooking all the great flavor and scent out right at the beginning.
Yeah,
I mean, it makes sense, but you just don't think about it if you've just been doing corn and sugar.
And depending on what you're running, what you start at, whether or not you have a bunch of reflux and you know what your fruit starts out at, on a 10 to 15 gallon wash you're only going to fit 12 or 13 gallons in there. You're only going to end up with a gallon to a gallon and a half of hearts, depending on where you pull out from. Which, depending on what size jars you jar, and you're talking about 4 to 6, or if it's pint jars, maybe 10, 11 jars. But honestly, that pear juice, we added a half a gallon of pear juice to about a third of a gallon of washing the thumper. And within the 5 to 6 jar, when it was in our hearts that we wanted to start keeping, it was gone. It had gone through it, but was clearly in those front jars. So the point of the bypass or an infuser, I need to look more into those too. I wish I don't have.
Talking about the bypass though.
Facts on there.
Seems like to be the easiest way to modify our current small still setup.
Basically, it just means that you can switch it to run straight from the pot to the condenser, and then when you're ready, turn on the thumper, which means you could run out your first handful of jars to know that you were going to be into your hearts basically before you turned on your thumper, so that those handful of jars literally you want to be your hearts or when it starts to grab that flavor.
Literally bypass the thumper and all the flavors and everything it has in it waiting to go when you run your heads out. Then just turn that bypass off, run it through the thumper or your infusers or whatever. And then when you're getting into your hearts jars that you want to keep, that's when the flavor's coming in, the scent's being carried over. It makes a lot of sense. Again, didn't think about it beforehand because all we've done is corn liquor primarily this whole time. So why would we need to bypass the thumper?
Yeah.
But makes a lot of sense after the fact. So something we're going to look into.
But I just want to kind of wrap up everything that we learned from this and what we would do different. So just keep in mind, we treated this thing with complete disrespect. I mean, I literally went out and bought a trash can that had something big enough for the fruit room. I usually used like a 15-gallon food grade bucket. It wasn't going to have enough room for the amount of gallon wash and the amount of fruit inside of it. Yeah. So we just went out and bought a trash can. We gave it no respect as far as how clean we could have done it, how much we could have taken our time. I mean, we fed it what it needed to be fed to take off of the ferment, but we didn't do anything extra to take care of it or to try to really dial it in. Which is,
there was
you
some
know,
yeast nutrient.
yeah, yeah. But that's the point, though. That's the entire point of why we're doing this is to learn, improve, figure out what we can do better, why it didn't do better than it did. You know, it's just kind of come and go. So next time, I think I would try to get more out of the fruit. Maybe a fruit press, something along those lines. And it needs to be riper. It needs to be at a point where when you pick it up and squeeze it with your hands, it's guts of the fruit coming out. Basically, I mean, you want that thing to be as worked off as it can be.
Mushy.
A bypass for the thumper or an infuser for the thumper, so that we can turn the flavor on that we're adding to it at that point when we want to for our heart joggers, I think would have made a totally different finished product. The peptic enzyme, we tossed it at a weird time. I think we could have gave it more time to work. We tossed it in basically with the additional wash. So it didn't really just sit on the fruit and work. It basically
No, it was like, what, 1 day before we fished the yeast?
Yeah.
So we definitely didn't give it enough time to break down.
So that's really about it. I mean, clearly we ended up with something that we're happy to drink, that we're getting buzzed on out here on the porch.
Yeah.
Crazy how much honey's coming out of that.
Compared to this and this, just absolutely staggering difference.
Yeah. So we're gonna have something to say out of this. We'll bottle this up for fun and throw a cinnamon stick in it and have something that we can enjoy that we learned from. Other than that, that's really about it. I mean, we're gonna decide what we're making next, whether it's another brandy run or if I know I'm really wanting to get a new condenser made that we've been working on for a while. But yeah, we'll catch up with you on the next episode and we'll go from there. So
yep,
appreciate y'all hanging out with us.
Yes, thank you.